Greetings, students, and welcome to this episode of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you live from Orange County, California. This is the website, blog, and podcast you come to in order to learn more about different destinations. We come together as a community to discuss different things about those destinations. We travel more, and we enjoy life more. That's the purpose of this channel. Now, you can always find me on my website at theprofessortravel.com. Incidentally, you can also find me at The Professor Travel at both YouTube and Facebook. On Instagram, it's a little bit different. It's the_professor_travel. On Twitter, it's theprofessortr1. And if you're a blogger, you can also find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, I am very honored to have a very good friend of mine, Maine Templeton. She is coming to us live from over on the East Coast. Say hi, Mame.
Hi.
So, Mame, just so my listeners and viewers, the students on this channel, get a little bit of a better idea of who you are and what you do, can you give me a little bit of your credentials, maybe just some stuff about your educational background and some places that you've traveled before?
Well, I have a bachelor's degree in communications, and it took me, I think, about 30 years to get it. Several schools, finally got it from Trinity in 1998. About the same time my daughter graduated.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I decided to go on this trip primarily because I have a dear friend I work with who's getting married in Buenos Aires. And
wow.
Yeah, he invited me to his wedding, and I decided I was going to go.
Lovely,
So
awesome.
that was the reason for the impetus for the trip.
Now, for purposes of this blog and podcast, we are going to be going and reviewing two countries. We're looking at both Argentina as well as Brazil. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So how long in advance did you have to be able to plan for this trip?
Probably too much time. Seriously, I started looking at Travelzoo so the wedding was in Buenos Aires, but I didn't want to just go that far to one place. So I found this tour on Travelzoo that included Rio and Buenos Aires, and the timing was just about right. And I said, perfect. And I asked a friend if she wanted to go, and she said yes. And she asked her daughter, and her daughter wanted to go. And so that was the plan, that the three of us were going on this trip. Now, when I say the timing was right, it wasn't quite right. And I had to miss a major part of the tour because of the timing of the wedding. I thought that I could, to the casual observer, it looked like, oh, I could go there and then hop over here and I could make everything on time, but that wasn't the case. It became apparent as I got down to fine tuning it that I was going to have to miss Iguazu Falls.
Oh my gosh.
A main draw, and I did miss it.
Okay.
But
we're going to get into that in just a minute, because I got some really great ideas about that.
Okay.
But in preparation for this, though, did you need to have any type of a visa or special travel medication when you're traveling?
No. Americans didn't. As an American, I didn't need any kind of visa or special inoculations or anything like that.
Perfect. Okay, so you're getting ready to go to these two countries. What do you pack for? I imagine the weather is going to be very different. Sometimes it could be very cold in some of the southern areas, and it could be very hot and temperate in some of the higher areas.
Yeah. Packing is always my biggest stress, and I have to stop myself and think, stop. You're good at this. You're really good. You're good at packing light. You're good at packing right. Don't stress, but nevertheless, I stress. Well, I was going into a springtime situation from a winter, where we have winter here, and they were having spring. So I had to kind of make sure I had some layers. Always a wool cashmere zip hoodie for if not the trip, then at least the plane and the airport. I mean, I will never travel without one, no matter where I'm going anymore.
No, makes sense.
I know. I had a work trip one time going to the Ivory Coast and Brussels in winter. So it was tropics, and I packed it in one small bag. It was kind of a miracle. But as far as packing goes, I keep it simple, mostly black black and white clothes with a couple of pops of color, making sure I have leggings and a pair of shorts. Not that I'm going to strut around in shorts at my age, but you know. But I'm always worried about being cold, so I want to make sure I'm warm enough but not hot. And keeping it simple.
Two things that you mentioned, I think, that are both very good pro tips, and this goes out to my students as well. I like to pack a hoodie also, and one of the reasons I like to have that on the plane is not just to keep warm, but also the hood itself can sometimes cover my eyes, especially if you're trying to get sleep as you go along through that process.
Exactly.
So that can be very helpful if you use that. And secondly, you made a really good point about coordinating your stuff. You may not need to bring as many clothes if you have just like a standard color palette that you're bringing with you along the way. So if I'm wearing all blacks or all blues or something like that, or all grays, you know, those are things that are very neutral. And if I'm going on a place, you know, sometimes that's great. And like you said, you can still have that little pop of color, and that's great and all. But it's still, if you want to have like 5 outfits versus 20 outfits, it just, you know, it's much easier to be able to do it like that. So thank you for bringing that up.
And for me, packing black, I can just wear a black cold shoulder top with leggings and throw on some jewelry, and it looks like I'm dressed up. Mm-hmm. So that tackles that handles the if I have to get dressed up, if we're getting fancy some night. You know, you saw it on our trip.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, we actually, Mame and myself, we actually went on a cruise a couple of years ago to the Baltics, and we had one night where just randomly we decided to do a wine tasting / anniversary dinner for myself and my husband. And so part of that was I had asked Mame, hey, do you want to come on? Do you want to come to do this? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And she had something prepared right away. And it's like, it was beautiful. You did a great job.
Yeah, it was not designer. It was, you know, Costco and some good jewelry. Not even good jewelry, cheap jewelry, but it looked good.
Stop. No, you were fantastic. It was a great time. I had a wonderful time. So thank you for being there with us.
Yeah, that was a great night.
So let's talk about the airport and parking situation. So which airport do you fly out of? Do you fly out of Dulles or?
Oh, I do if I have to. But I tend to not want to. Baltimore has traditionally been my preferred airport because it's simple and it's fairly easy for me to get to. But I'm changing my mind on that.
Okay.
I chose to fly out of Baltimore, and it backfired on me for a couple of reasons. I ended up having extremely long layovers in Miami, and I believe it was as a result of insisting on flying out of Baltimore, which I wasn't insisting. I just didn't have a good travel person to suggest alternatives. But I had a friend take me there, and I have Ubered there and back in the past. And
okay.
It's really, I mean, Uber's fantastic.
Okay.
If you don't have a friend. But, you know, I have had several friends who, in retirement, that is their thing. They take friends to the airport. So that's what I did.
Oh, okay. That tells us about your transportation to the airport. How long was this trip going to be, by the way?
10 days. Well, 11 days.
It was 11 days. Okay. But it's already going to take a day just to get down there in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. You to spend the first night on the plane trying to sleep. Yeah.
And speaking of planes, let's talk about the flights. Which airline did you decide to take on this trip?
American.
American? Okay. And did you go coach? Did you go business? Did you go first class? What was your...
I flew coach, and I felt like a sardine wedged into a can, or one of many M&Ms in a bag. It was just, I don't think I moved the entire time. The guy next to me just, they were not friendly, and they didn't move, so I didn't move. It was awful. But for some reason, and I don't know why this is, on the way back, I was premium economy.
Oh.
For a 9-hour flight. I'd never flown premium economy. I don't know what the cost differential is, but I'm going to be looking into it in the future because it was well worth it. It was just shy of business class comfort, but it was a substantial difference. So, and I don't know why that happened. Maybe that travel agent that I just badmouthed was being nice to me.
Well, the travel gods, whoever they are, just looking.
Somebody,
they're shining down on you because you had a challenge during the first part of the first leg of the trip. So there you go.
More than that, but yeah.
Now, it sounds like you went from Baltimore to Miami, then down to, was it to Argentina first?
Rio. We went to Rio. Rio was first.
Okay. And when you arrived there, I'm assuming you didn't have any pre-vacation destinations. You went directly there. what were your accommodations like over in Rio?
They were great. You know, this tour that I was a part of for much of the trip, not all of it, but for much of it, was Gate 1 Travel, and the hotel that they had picked, I had to change my plans to fly into Buenos Aires. Oh, excuse me, we're talking about Rio. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, well, Rio was fine. You know, in my opinion, unless the room is really bad for some reason, it's fine. And it's the least exciting thing about the trip. The 23rd floor in the hotel overlooked Copacabana Beach. It was spectacular.
Wow.
It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. I got a sunburn day one that screwed me up for several days.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Poor thing.
right here, I was beet red. But, you know, so my first purchase, I had to go out and find a pharmacy and find aloe.
Yeah.
And aloe is a miracle drug.
Mhm.
Prevented any kind of peeling or anything and healed it within a few days. But I mean, it was bad. I had somebody say later in the trip, "Hey, I didn't recognize you with your face not sunburned."
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I
It was
appreciate
bad.
that.
But that rooftop deck was wonderful. I mean, it was just gorgeous. So you could see, and it was a clear day, so you could see for miles. You could see all the little islands dotting the bay there, or whatever that is.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
nice.
and so, and it was a nice room. It was nice. So everything worked. Everything was wonderful. You know, there was nothing uh, to note about it.
Okay, that's cool, and sometimes that's the best way. Pro tip to my students, though, one of the things you might want to consider when pre-packing, and there's three things I always look at. I would say a hat to protect you from the sun, to have some sunscreen with you, even a small amount of sunscreen just for those occasions like you were talking about. And three, sometimes it's always good to bring like a little travel version of like off mosquito repellent or something like that. If you're going to a place that might have bugs or something like that, it might also help. So I just wanted to share that with my students really quick. So how long were you going to be specifically in Rio for, in that specific area?
It was supposed to be, I believe, 4.5 days or so, but I had to cut it short, so I was only there maybe 3 days.
Okay. So
Um,
let's talk about the itinerary a little bit. We'll start to share from Rio, and I'm going to give you this time to kind of transition us through your vacation. So let's go maybe day by day. And if you want to just share something about what you did in each of those days, including the wedding, by the way, because I'd love to know about that. Let's start with your first day in Rio.
Okay, first day in Rio, I had to go out and see about buying aloe, and also I had kind of scratched the cornea on one eye, so my eye was just weeping and running, so I had to get some eye drops.
Oh, you poor thing.
Aloe, and at that point, my friends were not there yet, so I did that. And one of my favorite things to do when traveling, one of my favorite things to do is try and use the language. Now they speak Portuguese in Rio, but everybody seemed to understand Spanish. I never learned Portuguese, but I've had much on and off practice with Spanish, and so that was fun for me. That's a blast for me to try and remember how to say something and ask somebody a question, and so I did that and went out and made my purchases. And then when my friends arrived later that afternoon, I had been on the beach for maybe a half an hour, which was perfect for the amount of sun that my skin could take at that point. I'd gone out to Copacabana Beach and tested the water, which was ice cold, unswimmable.
Wow.
Well, it'd be like going in the ocean up here on the East Coast in April, cold.
Wow, I'm surprised. But you always see the pictures of Brazil and how beautiful the beaches are and how gorgeous it looks. But then I keep forgetting, if we're switching the time of year, it's springtime there. So yeah, it's really going to be a little bit chilly.
Yeah, and I have to say this about Rio. It's a huge beach culture, huge. Acceptable wear on the street is, for a man, let's say, is a black Speedo and flip-flops. And do not carry a towel that will mark you as a tourist. You carry a sarong, and strut around in your Speedos. They have these stations along the beach. I think there were at least 8 in the Copacabana, Ipanema area, where you, for almost no money at all, you can go in, take a shower, change your clothes, because many people who live a little bit away from the beach will take the metro or a bus into the beach area, and need to. They don't want to be all sandy and salty, so they have these wonderful showering, clothes changing stations along the beach, which I think is fabulous. I don't know why we don't have them here. I mean, that would be so convenient for if you want to take a day trip to the beach, but you just don't want to be riding home with sand and salt and grit, So anyway, but it's a huge beach culture, and they are it's illegal. It is illegal to privatize any of the beach or any other beautiful place in Rio, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you spend your day there. What was it? What did you do that evening?
I think we had a welcome dinner at a restaurant where I had to eat meat. Both Brazil and Argentina are huge meat cultures, and I'm not a big meat eater, but I will eat it. But I didn't, Anyway, we went to a place that there was a piano player who and some of the people in the group would get up and sing songs along with the piano player. The food was great. It was wonderful. I ate some of the meat. It was like, okay, whatever. But other people really liked it, and they came and sliced it at your table, and so that was fun. And the piano player, he's this old guy. The man was brilliant. I asked him if he knew a song that I only heard once in my life in Guatemala, under the most amazing circumstances, and it's called Más Allá del Sol. And I asked him if he knew it, and he didn't. But he made me spell it out and looked it up on his phone, listened to it once, and played it.
Wow.
Played it. After listening, he wanted me to sing, and I wouldn't sing it. But I was just blown away by it. I was like, what a talent to be able to hear something once and then just play it on the piano. Oh, amazing.
That's pretty impressive. Now, again, for my students, like Mame was saying, and you may not have even had exposure to this, to my students, that is, but Brazilian barbecue, as it's often referred to, are these steakhouses where typically you'll have an unlimited supply of meat that's brought to you by the waiters, and it's usually on swords. They cook them on swords. They will peel them and cut them from a sword to you at your table. And usually the only way to stop them from coming over your table and visiting you with that is sometimes on the table they'll have this, maybe it's a salt shaker, maybe it's a little sign. One side is green, one side is red. What was that?
It'll say no more.
It'll say no more. Yeah, exactly. That's basically, it's like, please pause, or just I quit, whatever. And so, yeah. But oftentimes, even in those Brazilian steakhouses, they'll have like a rather robust salad bar or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully you didn't have to have too much meat if you're not a big meat eater person, but you were able to hopefully visit the salad bar at least while you were there.
Oh, and calling it a salad bar is really a misnomer, because it had everything on it. It was fabulous. It was a huge buffet spread of just about everything you could imagine. So no, not eating meat was not a problem. And I did eat some, but it's not my main thing.
Yeah. And I know when we get into talking about Argentina, we'll talk a little bit more about the wines over there, because I'm certain that you had something over there. But over in Brazil, what is the preferred drink over there, or what kind of thing?
Oh Lord, there was this thing. God. Sounded like a cousin of Piranha or something, Cutinajas or something. I hate to disappoint you, Scott, but I don't drink, so I didn't even taste it. But everybody in the group loved it. They ordered. They'd give us free ones here and there, and then people would want more. It was
okay.
I don't know what it was. It was some.
But apparently it was pretty popular.
Yeah, it was very popular, and everybody loved it. And everybody kept they kept telling us that you're going to mispronounce it, and it's not Cutina, it's Coutinha or Kanaha or something. I really don't remember. I should have written it down. I should have.
No, that's okay. At least if my students hear that, they might be, oh, okay, well, that's what that is. So, and apparently
I
it's
may
popular.
not be. I may not be the best travelogue person since I don't drink and I don't eat meat and whatever.
No, the experience is the important thing, and
This is why
that's
I'm a
why I have
bad
you here.
date. I'm a bad date too.
Oh, stop. No, you're fabulous. I loved the time we spent together over in the Baltics. So thank you so much. So, okay, let's move on to your next time. So what other activities did you do while you were in Brazil?
Oh, actually, I did something. My travel mates opted not to, but well, we went up to see the Jesus statue on the mountain. We
Which is
did
huge.
that, and that was the views are spectacular from up there, and it's a very touristy thing to do, and it's loaded with tourists, packed with tourists, and we did that. But the thing that I really enjoyed was a tour of the they call them samba schools, but that's another misnomer. What it is, it's an association of people, and there are 104 of them, that compete during Carnival.
Oh, wow.
And so they're not really schools, they're more like associations. And what we got was a tour of the place where they build the floats
Mm-hmm.
and make the costumes, which
Oh, wow.
I was completely stunned by. We were not allowed to take pictures of certain things, especially current production, but we were allowed to take pictures of. They had an area with photographs and drawings of previous year's things, and also three-dimensional previous year's costumes.
Oh, wow.
Pictures of. But the thing that amazed me, I've been to Mardi Gras in New Orleans twice. But I've never been to Carnival, and I always figured Carnival in Rio was kind of like Mardi Gras, maybe on steroids, but who knows, who cares? I didn't have that much interest. But once I saw what they do, they have a stadium built for the competitions, specifically for this competition of the floats and the costumes. There was a wall of 28 drawings of costumes. For each one of those 28, and we're talking feathers and beads and dramatic whatever you can add in there, 100 of each of those drawings, 100 of those costumes, with the headdresses and the sequins and the see-through this and it was I was blown away by it. I was blown away by it, and I can't wait to see what happens this Carnival season. I'm sure I'll be able to see it on YouTube, but it was an amazing tour. It really was. I was so glad to go there.
Would you go back?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Two other things I want to ask you about really quick. One, I keep hearing about Brazil's crime issues. What kind of precautions were you taking when you were down there, or did your tour guides talk to you about the criminal element that was in that area?
Well, I teach women's safety as part of my regular job, so I'm pretty inculcated in the things that you do and don't do. And a big part of your own personal safety is your own responsibility, and don't be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be stupid, don't be naive. And I did not feel in danger ever.
Okay.
I did not feel threatened ever. But then again, I was not strolling streets at night in unknown areas, which is one of the things you should not do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I did not feel as though crime was a big issue. Although that's not to say it isn't, but it depends where you go, what time you go, how you behave. All of those things. Personal responsibility for your own safety is important, and people need to consider that. And I don't know if they can take a course, use common sense, look it up before you go, whatever. But you don't go around at night in unknown places. You don't go around alone. You don't carry a swinging bag off your shoulder.
Yeah.
There are things that you don't do. You don't wear flashy jewelry, things like that. You don't make yourself a target, ever. Not just in Rio and Buenos Aires, but anywhere. You just need to be smart about how you carry yourself, where you carry yourself, and what you look like.
I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing that information, because I think it's really powerful to hear from someone who's more of an expert. You know, because it's one of those things where some people they're used to being a certain way here in the States, and they're not used to, well, how do I travel, or what other things do I do? Because maybe they're safe in their own community, but then outside. And again, maybe I'm just hearing things that are kind of overinflated about what goes on in Brazil, and Sao Paulo, and over in Rio. But it might be something where, you know, if you felt safe, it makes me feel safe. And that's one of the things I like about these vlogs, is that I get to hear from the personal experiences of what you've done, and maybe some of the things that you've done in order to help benefit yourself, and share that with the rest of the team. So thank you so much for that too.
Well, you know, one of the other things that we were told a fair amount about in Rio was the favelas, the slum areas, which are pretty. I mean, I could see a picture of one right now and know exactly what it was. They are. What happens is the poor people, they will build of their own accord. They will build a structure, and as the family grows, they build on top of it and beside it to what extent. So you have this like warren of buildings that are all hooked together, and you know, electricity is pirated from wherever, and it's kind of makeshift. But then these people also will build another floor on top and rent it out, so it's a source of income for them as well. And it seems that it is an integral part of the Rio culture. I didn't get a feeling of that these people were necessarily looked down on, but it was an integral part of the culture. And these favelas, they crept into rich areas, poor area. You know, they were all over the place. It wasn't like that's the bad area of town. There were, you know, they were all over the place. So it was kind of interesting to see.
Cool.
And that's not to say it's idyllic. They have drug problems and crime problems too. Oh, sure. But and they're also very multicolored. So visually, it's really interesting. In fact, we went to a God, I can't remember where we were. Someplace that had an art installation, and it was like a miniature favela built out of bricks and construction materials and whatnot. It was kind of interesting.
Cool. Did you happen to get any reference to the Olympics that were there a couple of years ago?
If I did, I don't remember.
Then apparently it wasn't that big of a deal. So that's fine. All right. Let's continue to go along. What other things did you do while you were over there in Brazil that really stood out to you?
In Brazil, I did something else. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was Argentina.
That's okay. If you know what, we can switch over to Argentina too, because I know that's a bulk of a lot of the stuff that you did too. How did you get from Brazil to Argentina?
Well, I booked a separate flight, separate from all my travel mates. I booked a separate flight, and I booked myself into the same hotel I would be staying in with them. So I missed Iguazu Falls, which was, from what I hear, spectacular. I'm really sorry I missed it. However, and this is the pisser of this whole thing, I found out after booking this trip that I have a work trip going to Brazil and Argentina in March.
Oh, man.
And it's like, wait a minute, I'm spending thousands of dollars of my own money to go someplace that work is going to send me anyway. But that being as it may, it also played into easing my soul about missing Iguazu Falls, because it's like, well, I will be back in March, so I will try and do it then.
Yay.
So I missed Iguazu Falls, and I arrived in Buenos Aires the day before the wedding. It was a Friday. Okay. And let's see, the hotel was just as nice as the one in Rio. Didn't have a 23rd floor to look out on the seacoast, though.
Well, you get a little spoiled on that, which is fine. But I imagine, though, the culture and the beauty of the location was still just as nice.
Well, yes, it was, and it was very civilized compared to some places I've been. Not Rio, but some places. It was very European, shall we say?
Yeah.
And then I did get to practice more Spanish, which was great fun. I walked out. Oh, right in one of the landmarks in Buenos Aires is this, looks like the Washington Monument. And it was right a block away from our hotel. This big lit up purple Washington Monument right there in Buenos Aires. So it was really helpful as kind of a landmark. You get a little bit lost, you can find your way back. But first day in Buenos Aires, I walked basically across the street to the Opera House and took a tour of the Opera House and tried to book an opera. Not that I have a great interest in opera. However, there's a little something that has been triggered in me that says, yeah, I might be interested in seeing an opera. It was this course by Robert Greenberg in the Great Courses catalog that kind of has opened my mind to the possibilities. However, I couldn't do it. They're standing room only for that night. I could not stand for 3 hours. I just wasn't going to do that. And then the next 2 nights they were dark, and then the next night I was leaving or something like that. Anyway, it didn't work. It didn't work timing wise, but I did get to see the building and tour it, and that was a cool thing to do.
Just really quick, for my students who are not familiar with the term dark, it just means that the plays and shows are not running at all during that time. It's a general term that they use in the theater. So.
Yeah, they were dark. Let's see what else. Okay, so I went shopping. I went wandering the streets and using my Spanish to find out where to go to, and it was great fun. I mean, I can't emphasize enough how much I love that. I really can only do it well in Spanish and French, but I have done it in Arabic and a little bit of Greek one time. And anyway, so I practiced my Spanish and I went shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a few things, and this was the day before the wedding.
Okay.
So the day of the wedding, I decided I hated the shoes that I had brought. I had brought these shoes. I'd never really worn them, but I had bought them at a thrift shop. They were pricey shoes that I'd found at a thrift store for a shoot on House of Cards that I was going to do. And I hated them. So I went out into the streets and found the shoes that you'll see in that slide that you had the picture of me in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Those are the shoes that I found. So I went shoe shopping in Buenos Aires, and it was great fun, and I found the perfect shoes, and I guess that was my big score for the day.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, now you obviously went to the wedding, I'm sure, which was fantastic. And you got some great pictures, including the one we showed earlier. What other things did you happen to do while you were over there?
In Buenos Aires?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you, if you want to see the handsomest, sexiest man on the planet, you're going to have to go to Buenos Aires because he is there. I don't know his name, but I'm going to hunt him down in March.
I hope you got a number.
I told my tour guide, I said, you're my only hope. Could you please go back there and find out his name or anything about him? He's got to be on the web. Why he is not the poster in the airports for Giorgio Armani and all these other high-end people who have these sexy-looking models. They got nothing on this guy. Aww. This guy, literally, I am 68 years old, and I have never, ever seen a man more handsome than this guy. Never.
Me? Aw. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's no. I'm happy you had an opportunity to do some sightseeing while you were there.
Wait. But let me expand on that a little bit, because that was not the point of the excursion. What it was a dinner and a tango show. Now, Argentine tango, everybody associates those two words together here, but really that's a false and outdated notion. Nobody in Argentina, except the people who put on shows, do the tango. That was from a bygone era, and nobody does it. It's like nobody here does the twist anymore, or it's a dance that was once done by everybody, but not anymore. Except because of the of the cachet that it has and the reputation that it has, they have these shows all over the place. And we went to this one in this, it was dinner and a show. And the dinner was, I'd say, fine. It was just fine. Nothing really remarkable about it in my view, but the show was spectacular, and not just because of that guy. Wish I knew his name. Diego, you know, Esteban.
How's the music?
Thiago, something, I don't know.
How was the
Anyway,
music?
so it started out with, well, first of all, the hostess was this woman in a 1950s outfit with this spectacular hat. I also took pictures of her. And the show began with a different woman who I could not take my eyes off. She was so good. She was so dramatic, so filled with joy and emotion over what she was doing. You couldn't take your eyes off her. And she was incredible. And there were tango dancers. There were like five male and 5 female tango dancers around her while she's emoting and singing and everything. And once that first act was over and I saw that guy, I couldn't see anything else. I through the rest of the show, I was just agog. Like, how can this be? How can someone this good looking exist and not be the most famous person alive? Anyway, so that was one thing about Buenos Aires.
How was the music as part of the show?
It was good. I mean, it was all in Spanish, so I could catch words, but I missed a lot. But the music itself was what you might expect for a tango show. And I can't speak for any of the other tango shows. I know they have a lot of them in Buenos Aires and who knows where else in Rio, or in Argentina.
Yeah.
But it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing, even if it is a touristy thing to do, because it most certainly is. It is a touristy thing to do. There's no question about it. I'm sad to say that. I would have loved to say, oh yes, we went out to bars and tangoed with this guy and that guy, but no, that's
especially that one guy that you were really hot on. So
he's probably a third my age too, you know.
Don't let it stop you, honey. Don't let it stop you. So
no, it's more like the 5,000 miles between us that's stopping me.
All right. So any other things that we want to touch on as far as Argentina goes before we head on back?
Well, no, but one thing I do want to say, I don't want this thing to be over before I say this. One of the things that makes a trip, or can make a trip, make or break a trip, is who you're traveling with. Mm. As you know, and our little group on deck 19,
love it,
was a total accident, but to me it was one of the best parts of the entire trip. Mm-hmm. It really was. I mean, yes, St. Petersburg was indescribable, but my favorite part, the part that stays with me in my heart, is the people on the trip, and that can work several different ways. So, and you can't always count on it working out the way you want. So, just be advised. Be happy with yourself, because it might be just you.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But and the thing you're referring to, and just so our viewers get a little bit of an idea as to what that was, we went on a cruise a couple years ago to the Baltics, and we went to all these wonderful countries, and there was so much stuff to see there. But like Mim was saying, one of the best things about this cruise was just a little group of people that we had. We were in like a little smoke section, and we just sat down and had a conversation, and it struck up more conversations, and we started gathering more and more people, to the point where that dinner that I talked about earlier in this recording, we had, I think, 12 people show up. It was
about a dozen of us, yeah.
Yeah, we had 12 people show up to this formal dinner for our anniversary, randomly out of nowhere. But it was just because we were building these relationships over the course of 10 days, 12 days, and it was just such a wonderful mix of people and great conversation and wonderful times sharing that information and just sharing our lives and experiences. And that's what really even this vlog is about, is just being able to share and get all that feeling back in your body, you know, driving you to want to go. And don't just sit in a corner and be in a ball. Go and share your experiences. Have those conversations with people. Meet new people. You know, you don't have to necessarily see them again if you don't like them. But like, for example, maybe myself, that was what, 2 years ago?
Two summers ago. 2 summers ago.
2 summers ago. And we're still in communication. And she's on the other side of the country. But it's like one of these things where we just it's a happy coincidence, and it just worked out so beautifully.
Well, you know, the thing of it is, we would all gather up there for coffee in the morning, and then everybody went and did their own thing. And then at the end of the day, we would get back and say what we did and go have dinner, and then come back and maybe stay up till midnight talking about who knows what, you know, all kinds of things. It was truly, I don't know if I'll ever be able to match it. It was such a good time, but it was the people that made that trip.
Yeah.
Really well.
No, I agree. Okay, so now we're gonna get back to the States. Did you fly American back as well?
Yes, that's when I had the upgrade to
That's right.
premium economy.
Premium economy, better leg room.
Yeah. Oh, wider seat, better leg room, better everything. It was great. It was really worth it.
You know, I didn't ask you earlier, but how was the food on the flights? Was it okay? Okay.
It was okay. It was just okay. I mean, I had a really good breakfast at some point, but you know, a big part of my traveling to and from was the 7 hour layovers in Miami Airport, both coming and going, which was, I think, a result of my poor planning in the beginning. But it was okay because of you know, I found a lounge to chill in, and I had movies downloaded and striking up conversations with random people who weren't there as long as I was. But anyway, the flight back was long, but I had that premium economy, so that was great. And relatively unremarkable. My friend picked me up at the airport, and
just out of curiosity, do you have global entry, or do you have like the mobile?
I don't. Okay. I don't, but I did have a funny episode with clearing customs. The customs agent asked me some usual questions. What were you doing there? I went for a wedding. How was it? It was great. How much money? What'd you bring back? I said, not much. He said, how much money do you have? I said, about $20. I said, but you know, I've got a cold too. I caught a cold at the wedding because I wasn't dressed well enough, and it was 80 degrees in the day and went down to like 40 something at night, and I wasn't dressed well enough, and blah blah blah. And then he asked me one more question, and he goes, okay, you go over there and blah blah blah. And one of the other customs agents said to him, did you just tell that woman to go blah blah blah? And I turned around, he's laughing, the other guy's laughing, I'm laughing. So it was a fun little exchange with the customs guy.
That's pretty nice. It's good when the people who are at passport control are not overly serious. But again, you shouldn't be the one to initiate that humor. Let them be the one to initiate the humor.
Well, not all of them are funny. Not all of them.
No, not at all. That's what I'm saying to my students who are out there. Don't go there. There are even signs in some places that said no jokes beyond this point. You know, they are very, very serious. But if they're the ones who are initiating a good conversation with you, just roll off it. I mean, just like, for example, on the cruise the two of us did a couple of years ago. I want to say we were coming back we went from Copenhagen to. I'm trying to remember the other location.
Oslo? Was it Oslo?
I want to say maybe the passport control in Copenhagen, the people were just, they were so funny. Like they saw our packages and they're like, oh, what did you bring me? Oh, that was so nice of you. Thank you so much. I'm like, no, not unless you want like this really horrible black licorice that we got. So, other than that, is like,
oh, did you get some of that salted black licorice?
Okay, so there is something that we picked it up while we were there because I don't like to think of it as a treat, more as a rite of passage. I wanted to share with some of my friends and colleagues, and oh man, it was terrible. But it's a delicacy over there, so it's like, again, you know, just kind of pick up on those things. When you travel abroad, you're going to find unique and interesting things that sometimes you're like, well, we don't have this in the States. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know. I'm just going to give it a shot and see how it works.
Some of them are winners and some of them aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to say I had experiences with durian in Thailand. I've had experiences with pickled herring in like Amsterdam, and then of course this salted black licorice.
Salted black licorice in Oslo or wherever that was.
Oh, dang it! It's like it permeates the entire area there. It's terrible. So
I have to tell you that I have some I just threw away. It was in my desk drawer all this time. I wanted to get somebody to taste it, and one person said they would, and then he wouldn't, and then it just stayed there. And I said, okay, now I can't ask anybody to taste it. It's so old, so I threw it away just last week, the week before.
And it's better in the trash, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so there you go. All right, so now we're going to get into the post-vacation information. So again, thank you so much for doing this. What are some pros that you have about this trip? What were some things that you really thought were great about it that you'd like to share with the rest of the students here?
Besides the handsomest man on the planet, well, people were great. Every place I went, the people were they were really friendly and helpful and great. And let's see what else. I really wouldn't mind having a Rio vacation in the full-blown nice weather rather than too cold to go in the water. I mean, I think that if you like the beach culture, which I do, and I love beaches and the ocean and all that, so I think Rio, if you like the beach, it's probably a great place to go in our winter, their summer, and Argentina. And I guess, of course, there's the food aspect that I didn't particularly partake of, but everybody else thinks that the meat is and it is they feed it they feed their cows special food. They've cultivated the whole fantastic meat thing, so that's one thing. But for me, that wasn't the main reason for going. But it was a good trip. I mean, I was really happy to go.
I mean, we already talked about some things to kind of be aware of as far as, just being mindful of crime and stuff like that. Were there any other things that you thought that my students should be aware of when they're trying to go there for the first time?
Other than common sense things, I don't think so. I'm always, though, I'm really big on packing light, having very little to have to take care of. I know that some of the people that I've traveled with just overdo it. I mean, they just try and account for every possibility, and that's not smart, and it weighs you down. And also, if you don't have something, you can buy it there, chances are. And that's one of the cool things about traveling is the things that you bring back with you as reminders of your trip. So, packing light and keeping it simple, being aware of your surroundings, those are things to be aware of anywhere you go.
You also went through Gate 1 travel. Is that a value savings piece that you thought would be helpful to share with the rest of the class, or what was your experience? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, on the one hand, I don't like traveling with groups generally. I really don't like that. There are some times when it's preferable, like on safari in Africa, or when you're going someplace where the language is completely out of your realm of recognition, China perhaps, things like that. I think Gate 1 is probably a really good tour group. If you're more comfortable in groups and you want everything taken care of, that's a good value. It really is. So I can recommend them if you're open to traveling as part of a group.
Okay, cool. Well, Mame, I want to thank you so very much for doing this vlog and podcast for me. I really appreciate it. For my students that are out there who are watching on YouTube, please hit the bell notification in order to get notifications of when we upload new videos. If you haven't already subscribed, and please like this, it means a lot to me. If you're listening to this on the podcast, of course, please give us a favorable review. We really appreciate it. It helps the channel to grow. Again, thank you so much, Mame. And if you have any questions, students, for myself, for Mame, anything, you can send me the email directly at scott@theprofessortravel.com. I'll be more than happy to shuttle that over to Mame in case there's any additional questions you wanted to know about Brazil or Argentina. But in the meantime, do make sure that every one of your adventures is a great travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.
Bye.